The 1980s. The rugged tough guy days of the National Basketball Association. It was a very unique time within the league as there was this incredible blend of various different styles. Some teams and players preferred a slower half-court approach, while other teams couldn't push the tempo fast enough, which often led to many incredible highlights. The game was also insanely physical, not necessarily in the sense of constant screens and body contact, but more in terms of the fouls and lack thereof. More physicality was permitted during that era, since the flagrant foul call was not strongly implemented until the 1990 NBA season. To put it simply, if you could survive as a pro in the 1980s, then you'd probably make it in just about any era of the NBA. But today, we're not just talking about the players who had survived if you dropped them in this modern era, but rather, who are the guys that would thrive? Who are the players that take the greatest leap forward if they changed eras? Today, I'm taking my experience of watching hundreds of hours of 80s basketball, and I'm doing my best to answer that question. First off, Mark Price. This guy was so ahead of his time as a point guard. His efficiency splits were insane throughout his career, as he was constantly hovering around 50-40-90 percentages year in and year out. In the modern NBA, point guards like Steph Curry, Damian Lillard, and Trae Young have a greater green light than point guards in generations past, as they can launch away as many three-point bombs as they could possibly want, with no objections from their coaching staff. As a lethal three-point shooter who had an incredible pull-up jumper off the dribble, Price would absolutely thrive in this era, as his speed and ball handling was elite by the standards of any era. So creating space for plenty of good looks would be no issue for him whatsoever. He would love to play in this era, where he's constantly getting screens from his teammates, and where moving screens are rarely called. Throw in the fact that he was a terrific passer and an all-time great free throw shooter, and this guy would see his numbers skyrocket. During his prime in 1990, he was averaging about 20 points, 9 assists, and 3 rebounds on solid shooting splits, but he was doing that on only 14.5 shots per game. In this modern era, coaches would be begging him to shoot it more. So hypothetically, in this modern game, I could see those averages increasing to about 26 points per game, 10 assists, and 4 rebounds on roughly the same shooting splits. Next is Dale Ellis. This guy is such an underrated gem of the NBA's past that basically only us old heads know about. This was a guy who was desperately trying to play 2020s basketball in the 1980s, as he was a pure shooter and would launch away from deep as often as his coach would let him. In interviews, Larry Bird still often gives him his proper respect, as Ellis was often his greatest competitor in the NBA's annual three-point shootout, which he actually won in 1989. He wasn't elite in many areas offensively other than scoring, but as a pure 6'7" shooting wing, that's all he would need to be in order to be a dangerous threat in this modern league. At his best in 1989, he played all 82 games and averaged 27 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists while making 50% of his shots and an absurd 48% of his three-point shots. Hypothetically, in this modern league, I think his three-point attempts would more than double, from about 4 per game to around 9 on a nightly basis. Because of this, I think his three-point percentage would drop slightly, but I'm still predicting that a prime Ellis would average 30 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists on 48% shooting from the field and 43% from three-point range. Next up is Bill Laimbeer, and I know what you're thinking. Bill Laimbeer, as in the physically punishing big man who reveled in his bad attitude as the face of the Detroit Pistons? Yup, that's the one. But he's thriving in this modern league for reasons that you're not thinking of. Obviously, he would need to tone down his physically punishing nature. But if Draymond Green can keep playing in the modern NBA despite all the things he's done, then I don't see why Laimbeer couldn't, although he would certainly be getting suspended a lot more often than he's used to. Beyond all that, there's a lot of reasons Bill would gel in this modern league. First off, Bill Laimbeer is a 6'11" center who was an elite rebounder and was an incredible outlet passer, which is a nice skill to have in this modern game, where bigs need to get the ball to their shooters as quickly as possible. Bill was also one of the first stretch 5 centers in NBA history, as he loved to shoot 3-pointers and would often run the pick and pop beautifully with Isaiah Thomas and Joe Dumars. Like many players in the 80s, he wasn't a great 3-point shooter for the first half of his career, while the players were still adjusting to the implementation of the long ball. But by 1990, he shot as high as 36% from 3-point range, which was considered to be very efficient in that era. And I do think he would be even more efficient if he played today, since he would have more incentive to practice even more of those shots. At his personal best in 1985, he averaged about 17 points, 12 rebounds, and 2 assists on 51% shooting. In this modern league, I think he would average about 21 points, 11 rebounds, and 3 assists on 50% shooting from the field and around 37% from deep. Last on the list is obviously Larry Bird. This guy's game was tailor-made for the modern league, and this one doesn't require much elaboration since you all are so familiar with his game. He was a 6'9" power forward / small forward who can handle the rock, who can facilitate with the best of them, who was a lethal 3-point shooter, and who had a basketball IQ that was through the roof. Even if he was technically a forward, he would still orchestrate the offense as a large point, in a similar fashion to guys like LeBron James, James Harden, and Luka Doncic. At his best in 1987, Bird averaged about 28 points, 9 rebounds, and 8 assists on better than 50-40-90 percentages. In this modern league, with more 3-point attempts and with the ball in his hands even more to make plays, I think he's averaging about 33 points, 9 rebounds, and 12 assists on right around 50-40-90 splits. There's some 80s players who could definitely get some love in this hypothetical scenario, so this is my list of honorable mentions. Who is the 80s player that you think would get the greatest boost from playing in today's game? I look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comment section below. Thanks for watching as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more basketball content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.